Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're quickly talking about Nintendo versus EveryGameGuru, and this is more of just an update from yesterday's video. If you're unaware of the lawsuit, at a high level here, Nintendo is going after EveryGameGuru for streaming games before they're released on the Switch. And they're also going after emulation in the lawsuit, at least the way it's written, at least from my understanding. They're having a hard time summoning EveryGameGuru to court, and they're looking to the courts for a default judgment. Now, it's worth pointing out I'm not a legal expert, and in that video I said the default judgment may set a precedent, and it turns out that it actually may not set a precedent. There were a lot of people weighing in the comments to say otherwise. For example here, this person says default judgments can't be used to set precedents to revoke precedents set by other cases. So Nintendo getting the default literally is them taking the L in this particular case. This person here says, obligatory, this isn't legal advice, but I have a law degree, although I have not taken the bar. And I do not think a default judgment would be precedent-setting re-emulation moving forward. That section of the document looks to me like Nintendo padding their argument that their rights are being violated, and a default judgment would, to the best of my knowledge, just establish this one particular defendant owes Nintendo damages. This person here says, this doesn't set a precedent against emulation that can be used at all, otherwise you could easily abuse the court system by suing someone you're in cahoots with to get them to not show up to court, and thus set legal precedents with default judgments. While Nintendo could technically cite this case in future cases, they'd be stupid to do so, and any defense lawyer worth anything would get the judge to agree that the case wasn't actually defended against. It would weaken Nintendo's argument to rely on such a case, not strengthen it. And then they've got a quip here. It's honestly kind of discouraging how little US citizens appear to know about their own common law legal system. I'm Canadian. But aside from that, I did respond to their comment, and they responded on top of that. There was a nice back and forth. But I will say here, there's something I did want to point out, where they say they'd be stupid to use this in future cases, and I would argue otherwise. Number one, if I'm not mistaken here, Nintendo cited their court case with Nintendo versus Tropic Haze, or Yuzu, that was settled out of court. And secondly here, this person's comment. Let's be honest here, even though emulation is completely legal and you could prove everything was good, Nintendo would still murder you financially to pressure you into saying that emulators are illegal in court, because they know you won't have the money to endure, so the new precedent really doesn't mean anything new. Especially when the problem here was that the other moron getting sued used a leaked game. But I don't know here. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal expert, and I was blasted for sharing my thoughts about it in the comments of the previous video. So just let me know your thoughts in the comments below here. We're going to have to wait and see. I will say, though, with EveryGameGuru avoiding court and Nintendo getting possibly a default judgment, that may be best case scenario in this case for emulation in general, unless EveryGameGuru was to win the lawsuit, which I don't see happening. I maybe shouldn't have said any of that because I'm certain someone's going to disagree with me in the comments below. But moving on here, next up we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with ShadPS4, and ShadPS4 just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, ShadPS4 version 0.8.0, codenamed The Steven of Us, has just released. They say here the release is dedicated to one of their latest Uber devs, Steven. So taking a look at the summary, and this appears to be a pretty big release. There's a whole bunch of fixes, improvements, and brand new features. They've added the option to disable game folders individually. Over on their Discord, Alan Wake says, Heavy Rain is now in game with no hacks on main, thanks to texture cache changes. Sound is broken compared to older build though. VZP says, Dying Light reaches in-game menus with broken visuals. Steven says, Uncharted the Nathan Drake collection now properly reaches menus. Uncharted 1 loads fine though crashed while trying to load in-game due to frame rate issues. And Uncharted 2 and 3 can't load through the game eBoot. Uncharted 3 reaches menus in main if you load it directly. On top of that, someone says Elden Ring is almost in-game, and then someone else says Elden Ring network test version in-game. And someone else says here Call of Duty Ghosts is in-game. I don't know about you, but we've talked a lot about PlayStation 3 improvements, and it's very interesting to see how quickly PlayStation 4 emulation is spinning up. And on a side note here, there's a brand new PS4 emulator. It's a fork of ShadPS4 called ShadPS4 Plus. And the whole purpose of it is restoring PKG support. It's worth noting here the person behind ShadPS4 Plus is the exact same person behind Azahar Plus, the fork of the 3DS emulator Azahar. So I'm assuming here that this one may be a little bit controversial. Next up, we're going back a couple of generations and talking about PlayStation 2 emulation on Android with NetherSX2. And someone here posted a PSA over on Reddit emulation on Android. Huge PSA, all NFS games fixed in NetherSX2. So it's being reported here. This is a little bit hard to read, but it's being reported here that disabling readbacks and unsynchronized non-deterministic settings are the fix for the problem. So by default, the setting in hardware download mode is accurate, and they're saying here to change it to disable readbacks or unsynchronized. And either one should fix the problem. If one doesn't, the other one will. Next up, we're talking about 8-Bit Do, or 8-Bit Do, or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, however you want to pronounce it. Anyways, 8-Bit Do has just unveiled their Retro R8 mouse and edition, and I would say this one looks pretty good. I would say it looks a heck of a lot more comfortable than their existing wireless mouse here that I have. I've reviewed it on this channel, and well, it looks nice, but to use it over an extended period is super uncomfortable, at least for me. Anyways, this new mouse that they have looks better. It looks a lot better. Over on their website, it says the cost here is $50 US or $49.99 if you wanted to be specific, and start shipping on May 22nd. And that price does include the base. Now, it's also got a listing over on Amazon. It says it's temporarily out of stock. But as for the specs here, it's got a PAW 3395 optical sensor with a DPI of 26,000. It is wireless via Bluetooth or 2.4G. And it does have Kale micro switches. Now, if you are curious about the comfort and performance and all of that, you can take a look at the Retro R8 mouse, the Xbox edition, which is $10 more. And it's got a 3.6 star review out of 5 over on Amazon with some mixed reviews. However, the looming question remains as to whether or not these will ship on time and whether or not they will be subject to tariffs. I mean, taking a look over on Android Authority here, and they're reporting that the Odin 2 maker, which is AYN, joins Retroid and Anbernic in stepping back from the US market, pausing shipments. So from my understanding here, some shipping companies are refusing packages bound for the US. And here is a snippet over on Android Authority. And if you are interested in learning more about anything we're talking about, links to everything are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. Anyways, they say here the current plan is to ship to the 25th, I'm assuming April 25th. And then pause for a week and try to choose a new channel for shipping after May 5th. So if you are in the market for a new gaming handheld, I don't want to say it's now or never. I'd rather say it's possibly really soon, or there may be a bit of a delay in getting one. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but I couldn't see them pausing shipments forever, just pausing shipments until this whole tariff stuff is over or they find an alternative method. But moving on and shifting from hardware to software, next up we're talking about Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. Now, this was one game I was extremely excited about. I'm a huge fighting game fan. I'm a huge fan of Fatal Fury Mark of the Wolves. And the art style on this one, the combat in this one looks amazing. However, I was a little bit less interested when they introduced Cristiano Ronaldo and that DJ. It just seemed like some of the immersion of the Fatal Fury universe was taken out by introducing real people. Anyways, maybe I'm just weird, that's just me, but this game seems to have been very positively reviewed. Over on Steam, it's got a very positive review score here, and a lot of people seem to really like it. So surprisingly here, at least to me, the launch of the game has reportedly gone very well. The game is very well built, and a lot of people are extremely happy with it. And taking a look, the only thing that's holding me back from purchasing this game is the price. In Canada here, it's $83 or $82.51 if you wanted to be specific. It is not a cheap game. So if you've played City of the Wolves, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below and if it's worth paying full price. Is it really that good? I've seen a lot of people give it stuff like 10 out of 10. The latest game I've picked up here, for those who are curious, is Drive Rally, which is currently 30% off and a whopping $18.19. And I am loving this game. I think it's a whole lot of fun. Some people have complained about the steering in this, but I haven't really thought of any problems with it at all. And this one's got a very positive review score overall, with a mostly positive recent review score. And speaking about new releases, next up here we're talking about the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Now, we've talked about this one a bunch of times on the channel. There were some leaks about it, there were some doubts about it, and then more and more leaks kept popping up, and it turns out the game was revealed and released the exact same day. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered is now live on Steam and is very positive in terms of overall rating. In just the last 24 hours since release, this game is number 6 on Steam's most played games list. Not of all time, just within the last 24 hours. Additionally here, the pricing of this game seems to be fairly reasonable. I thought it would cost a lot more than it really is. I mean, in Canada here, it's $67 overall and $80 for the deluxe edition, cheaper than City of the Wolves. And this game is Steam Deck verified. However, and this is a real big however, and I guess part one of two of a however, the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered does not support mods. So taking a look on their website here, they say mods are not officially supported for the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered. I don't know if that will change in the future, but if you're on PC here, that's where the other however comes into play. And that's because over on Nexus Mods, there's already a whole bunch of mods for the game. So this game is already being modded left, right, and center, provided you're on PC. I guess one of the many benefits of PC gaming. There are drawbacks to PC gaming versus console. I'm not going to get into that debate. I'm not going to open that can of worms. But at the same time here, if you are on PC, although the game doesn't officially support mods, unofficially, there's a whole bunch of mods available. And on a side note here, speaking about modding, I think this is super cool. So we've talked about Oblivion a bunch on the channel. At a super high level, it's basically Oblivion being remade within Skyrim. This is a fan mod, and they say here, huge thanks to our friends Bethesda for their continued support of Oblivion. As massive fans, we're beyond grateful for the generous gift of Oblivion Remastered game keys for our entire modding team. That is super cool. A huge win for Oblivion, and I guess a huge win for Bethesda. And on a side note here about Oblivion, if you're picking up a Switch 2, it's being rumored here that Oblivion is headed to the Switch 2. Next up, we're shifting from Bethesda to Blizzard and talking about Diablo 4. If you're a fan of anime, if you're a fan of Diablo 4, or if you're a fan of Berserk, or possibly all of the above, or just a fan of awesome stuff, you might be a fan of this. So this is the latest rate on Blizzard's website. Become the Black Swordsman with Diablo 4 x Berserk. Now, before someone blasts me in the comments for saying anime, I guess I should have said manga. Anyways, here this does look really, really cool, and it starts on May 6th. If you're a fan of Diablo 4, if you're a fan of Berserk, or just if you're a fan of cool stuff, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I mean, this to me is super awesome and super fitting for the series, or maybe it isn't. Let me know your thoughts about that one, but I would say it is. And talking about collaborations, next up we're talking about time collaborations, new with old. So we're talking about NHL 94 on the Sega Genesis and, well, one of my favorite series of ROM hacks. And that is updated roster. So just recently here, this was just released, NHL 94 2025 edition, well, the playoff edition. What I love about these mods, aside from making the rosters current, is they're not just simple name and number changes to reflect today's players. There's been teams added, there's been graphical refinements, gameplay adjustments, and even more. These are pretty involved mods. And I am very excited that NHL 94 continues to live on, at least in my house. And speaking about stuff in people's houses, next up we're talking about something pretty neat. So this is a blog about a Nintendo Wii, hosted on a Nintendo Wii. If you are curious about it, if you wanted to learn more about it, again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below. It tells you exactly how to host a blog on your Nintendo Wii. This is a super cool project overall, and as you can see, the website and blog are working. Moving on, and we're talking about Monster Hunter Wilds, and I would say this is a bit of a faux pas and is probably going to get remedied pretty quickly. But it's being reported that Monster Hunter has accidentally veered into pay-to-win territory because of emotes. So it appears that there's certain paid emotes out there that allow you to avoid attacks. I'm curious to see if Capcom patches this one out or keeps it as is. If they keep it as is, I assume a bunch of people will be buying these emotes to avoid attacks. If you play Monster Hunter Wilds, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below, but I would assume on one hand, this is a bit of a headache. On the other hand, it goes to show how good the hitboxes are for the characters. I don't know here, this seems to be a problem that was created because the hitboxes were too good. Moving on, and we're talking about Steam on Linux, and this is just a friendly heads up here. If you are using Steam on a very old Linux machine, you may want to read this here. So it turns out that as of August 15th, 2025, Steam will officially stop supporting Linux with GLIBCs older than 2.31. Now, I don't know about you, but to me this highlights one of Steam's biggest problems, and that's the whole DRM stuff behind it. I'm a huge fan of Steam, but at the same time, as much as you want to think you own your games, you need Steam to run on them, and all of that is locked behind Steam. So without Steam, you can't play those games. It's not like GOG where you just have the game and you own it DRM free. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.